I'm Elizabeth Noble with That's So Noble. In this video, I want to show you how to take a database project in Azure Data Studio and add it to a Git repository. Let's get started. So I've opened up Azure Data Studio, and I'm going to navigate to Projects. And as you can see, we still have our database projects book catalog, database project open. However, when I go to the source control option, you can see that it's not tied to source control. For this, I'm going to go ahead and initialize the repository inside of source control on Azure Data Studio. It's already got my default location selected. Now that it's initialized the repository, you can see over on the source control section, we now have various changes that have happened since we've added this database project to source control. And really all of this for our initial run is everything that got created. We can also go up to this source control option and select View and More Actions. And we're actually going to set up the source control repositories view. Here you can see the name of the database project and then the branch that we're currently working on. And there's this cloud here that allows you to publish to GitHub, which we're not quite ready for yet. The next thing we need to do is create a repository in GitHub. So we're going to go ahead and open up GitHub. And in my case, I'm going to select New Repository. And then for the sake of making it easier to follow along and for others to know what we're talking about, I'm going to make my repository name match my database project name. So we've specified database project, book catalog. You can see that it's available. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and leave it public and then create this repository. As you can see, I have this URL here for the repository. That's github.com/SQLZelda/database project book catalog. And then going back to Azure Data Studio, under source control, I'm going to select remote and then add remote. When I add the remote, I'm just going to paste that URL in and hit enter. And then it wants me to give it kind of like a nice name. So I'm going to call this database project book catalog and then enter. At this point, I should be able to push this data to the Git repository. I can do that by selecting this icon right here. Now that we've gotten Azure Data Studio set up with a database project and source control, and that source control is now tied to a GitHub repository, we need to go ahead and save our changes, which is called a commit. And at that point, we'll be able to go ahead and send those changes up to the GitHub repository, which is called a sync. I'm going to add a comment, in this case, initial repo creation, and then commit. It gives me the option to stage all my changes and then commit them. That's what I'm going to go ahead and do because that's what we're accustomed to at my company. And now that I've committed those, you see that I have this option with the cloud to publish changes. I'm going to go ahead and publish those changes, and I now have a little spinny set of arrows. And if I go back to my GitHub page and I refresh my repo, we're going to see that I now have the same objects in my GitHub repo that were on my Azure Data Studio database project. I hope this has helped you set up your database project and get it tied into GitHub.